Hey y'all, welcome back to Biblically Blonde. In this video, we're going to go over Exodus 5. So if you want to know what happens, why does it happen, what does it tell us about God, and then finally how we can apply it, then keep watching. Hi y'all! Hi! If you are watching this right when this video comes out, I know I haven't been around for a while, so hi, it's so good to see everyone. I am doing well, life is good, life is very, very busy. But if you're watching this like months later, hi again, and I hope I'm still doing pretty well. So I don't want to waste anyone's time. I know that when we come to these videos, it's because we're in the book and we don't understand a chapter and we want to seek deeper meaning. So let's just get started. Exodus 5. What happens in Exodus 4? Now go back and look at that video if you want a more in-depth look at it. But all we really need to know right now is that Moses and Aaron have been reunited and given instructions by God to go to Pharaoh and ask for him to let his people go. So that is where we start off in Exodus 5. And we see right off the bat that Moses and Aaron are in Pharaoh's company. So the first couple verses are actually really important. It says, afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness." So right off the bat, we have very clear instruction. They're telling Pharaoh, let the people go so they may go and hold a festival. So he's not even asking Pharaoh right off the bat to let them go forever. He's just asking for a 3-day festival in the wilderness, which is actually fairly common for not just the Israelites, but for other religions at the time. Going out into the wilderness for a 3-day worship session or festival, however you want to call it, was practiced around this area. So this wouldn't have been foreign to Pharaoh to hear. But as we know, God had bigger plans than this. This was just the first ask to kind of see how Pharaoh would take it. Next, Pharaoh is going to reply. Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord, that I should go obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." So this verse here is actually the most important out of this entire chapter. Pharaoh says, "Who is the Lord? I do not know the Lord." Now, there's different ways that you can take how he actually is saying this, but the way that I think he is saying this is he knows who Moses and Aaron are talking about, the God of the Hebrew slaves that he sees every single day working. He knows who he's referring to. He may not know him intimately like Moses does or some of the other Hebrews do, but he knows who he's talking about. He's deliberately being sarcastic. He is deliberately insulting the Lord by saying, "Who is the Lord? Who is that?" No. God does not like this. So then we have the third verse, and this is the one of, like I said, the first 3 verses here are the most important out of this chapter. And it says, "Then they said, 'The God of Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword.'" So why is verse 3 important? Well, here we have the first mention of the plagues, that God is going to do something to the Hebrews, to the Egyptians, to Pharaoh himself. The first mention of it is given. And so they are saying, please let us do this or God will do this. And so this sets everything in motion to come with the plagues that are going to be sent to Israel or Egypt by the Israelites. Okay, so then the rest of the chapter, right? So this is what happens. Pharaoh does not take kindly to what Moses and Aaron have to say. And he kind of mocks them back and he says, absolutely not. That's not happening. You guys are just lazy. That's why you're asking this. You're lazy people. So he goes to the slave overseers and the foremen and he tells them that the Hebrews are no longer to have the straw provided for them. Now, I'm not really into like making things, but I did do some research, and basically back then, in order for their brick making to make their structures, straw was involved. And so essentially what would happen would be the Hebrew slaves had a quota to make each day when it came to their building materials, their bricks, Well, the straw that they needed was already provided for them. That had already been out. They had already gone out, miles away and collected that and then brought that in. Other people did that. Maybe other slaves, maybe other Egyptians. That was already taken care of for them. So when the slaves were working each day, all they had to do was make their bricks, and they had a certain quota to make. So what Pharaoh is doing here is taking that aspect away and making it exponentially harder for them to make their quota, and he knows that. So now, instead of having the straw given to them each day, they have to go out and get it, which is not like in the city center. This is miles away. This is hard for them. This is on top of everything else that they're already being, they're already being treated poorly. They're already being beaten and disrespected and not looked upon nicely by the Egyptian people. Like, they have it rough. Now they have to have this happen on top of it. This isn't good. So obviously, since this isn't good, the Israelites are not able to make their quota. It's just impossible for them to make the same amount each day when they have to collect their materials as well. So they get beaten, they get punished by their overseers, and then eventually the Israelite overseers actually go to Pharaoh and say, why are you treating us like this? Like, why are you doing this? There's no way. Think reasonably about this. And so then Pharaoh in verse 17 basically replies, you're lazy. He says the same thing again. You are lazy. Keep doing this. There's no reason that you can't meet your quota each day, and you must, fulfill this order. So the Israelites, after going to Pharaoh, we see then in verse 19 that they're really upset with Moses, because here Moses and Aaron have arrived. They said that they were going to help the Israelites, and they haven't helped them at all. In fact, they've made life incredibly harder for the Hebrews. And so they go to Moses and they say, may the Lord look on you and judge you. You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. So the Hebrews are not happy with Moses. They're not happy with Aaron. And so then what happens next in verse 22 through 23, Moses is going to go to God and he's going to say, God, what is happening? Why are you doing this? What is the purpose? He actually says, why, Lord? Why have you brought trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not rescued your people at all. So here we have Moses really just not only talking for the Hebrews, but talking for himself, saying, I thought I had this mission, God. I thought you told me to do this, and nothing good has happened. This has been a terrible experience. So that is where Exodus 5 ends, and that is the key points. That is what happens. So why does this happen? Well, this isn't as obvious as some of the other chapters that we've done in Exodus so far. But I think the key to why this happens actually occurs in verse 2, where Pharaoh says, who is the Lord? I don't know him. Well, see, this is the first time that God is going to make himself known. When we get into the plagues and why this happens and how God, uses everything to get the Israelites out of Egypt, we'll talk extensively about that. But God is really making himself known to the people. When we go back to Genesis and we see Abraham and his family, they know of God. God says, I am the I am, when asked who he is. And Abraham and his family do worship the Lord. But the Lord does not make him really known, right? He's not fully declaring to Abraham who he is, how powerful he is, all the things, all the attributes and characteristics of God are not really present. Abraham is worshiping a God he does not truly know. He just believes. And that's the amazing thing about Abraham, is his faith. And I could go on about that, but to stay on course here, we're going to see God for the first time truly make himself known. So he's going to answer this question of Pharaoh. Who is the Lord? I do not know him. Oh, God's going to answer that. He's going to answer that directly in the next chapter, and the chapter after that, and the chapter after that. So this statement by Pharaoh is huge. I think it follows Pharaoh. It defines Pharaoh, this mocking of God. And God is certainly going to tell us exactly who he is. So then what does this tell us about God? Well, to piggyback off of God telling us who he is, God does not like to be mocked. Like, in scripture, we see this time and time again, and we see it really big here. When Pharaoh mocks God, when he is sarcastic to God, who is the Lord? I do not know him. That is something God does not take lightly. He doesn't take it lightly in us. When we do it, it talks in the New Testament about how we should not mock God, how we should not test the Lord. All of these things come back to the fact that we should not speak in disrespectful ways to the Lord or about the Lord. So this is one thing that we can really look at this chapter and see very clearly. God does not like to be mocked. So then finally, how can we apply this chapter in our daily life? Well, I think the apply aspect is really at the very end in the last couple of chapters where Moses goes to God and says, God, why? Everything that you've told me to do is now just worse. And so I think what we can really apply is sometimes when God gives us a command, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I know that's happened in my life. It's happened in a lot of people's lives. Now, sometimes things just aren't always great, right? God will give you a clear message and it is straight and arrow and everything goes perfect. But more times than not, it's a little bumpy, right? The road is a little bit bumpy. You hear a calling from God, but it's hard. That road to get there is hard, and it may get worse before it gets better. And here we have that happening to Moses himself. Moses is going to lead the people out of Egypt, and right now the people are very upset with him. They are angry because he has made their lives so much worse. So we can apply this by when we are being tested, when we are doing the right thing, doing what God has commanded us to do, but it doesn't feel like it because, man, is it hard. We are facing opposition. Let's remember Exodus 5 and know that sometimes it will get worse before it gets better. Alrighty, y'all, that was so great. I'm so excited to be back. I know I've been gone for a while. I plan on making a few, maybe a monthly vlog or something to catch everybody up on me personally. But more important than that is these Bible guides, because I know that whether you watch them now or you watch them 2 years from now, it's funny. I did the book of Judges 3 years ago now, and I still have people that are watching them every single day, commenting on them. And so I know that they may not get a lot of views when they go live, but people go to them when they're doing studies at their church, when they're doing studies at home, whatever. And I just love the fact that people can watch them whenever they are seeking to know more about the Bible. So I hope that this video helps you understand God's word better. If you want to know more about Biblically Blonde, go to biblicallyblonde.com, subscribe, like this video. It really helps my channel out, and I'll see you next time.